Another 20 minutes.
Not only 5 minutes. I expand from 2 centimeter up to 6 centimeter.我换方向。这个其实有8支，但是它周边是6支。
Yeah, we have to wait, and it seems a little long time. So, learning experience from the audience. So, have you ever tried simultaneous microwave ablation, which may shorten the time in treating such a large size tumor? There, okay.
Yeah, so I think this is the type of tumor where a microwave system probably could save some time. And now a multi-needle approach where needles are closer to where the vessels are also would be more certain to counter the heat sink effect. I think that's the approach I would take.
So now, you say that multi-needle, and you use 2 or 3, usually 3.
So with microwave, it all depends on the system. Mm-hmm. So every system works differently. But you would think you a minimum of 2 needles, if not 3, depending on the system. If you use 2, you must still reposition the needles. 3, maybe one session would be good enough, but maybe, depending on the system. But it doesn't matter. At the end, you have to check the ablation with either contrast ultrasound or contrast CT. Because I have no certainty, I would not be certain based on ultrasound alone that you have gotten the whole lesion. And then after the contrast CT or ultrasound, you would have to reposition again to make sure you have every margin. So I think that's the key right there. It doesn't matter what you start with. You have to check to see if you've got good margin from every direction and go for that other margin.
但是它最下面这边会不够，所以你还是要
If you are
个 cover 比较宽一点。
you will choose such kind of procedure or microwave?
到了吗？
Me personally, right now, would do microwave. But I think it's okay to do RF because the only question is you spend more time with RF. You can still get a very good ablation with RFA. And I think if you're familiar with the RFA, there's no reason to change. Because the procedure like this is already 2 hours. So you add 20 minutes, no big deal. as long as you're okay with the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Professor Lu gave us his American opinion. Microwave, at least 2 or 3 antennas and a shorter time, less than 20 minutes. So, an opinion from Japan?
Nowadays, Japan and we cannot use effective we don't have an effective microwave, and abroad system is not introduced in Japan. So many Japanese users use radio frequency ablation.
I would like to use a microwave. Okay.
I think in this case, combination therapy test and radio frequency ablation is effective. So test alone was not effective, but combination therapy is effective to decrease hepatic arterial flow.
But the question is, this tumor is not so hypervascular, and a part of the tumor is only hypervascular, and mainly this tumor is not the hypervascular. In this case, do you select the embolization combined with? Okay, thank you.
Dr. Tanaka,
Yes.
I think the timing of
等
the
一下，我们6
CT
公分
Okay.
时间到，
this
我
is
就会换
probably
地方。
recurrent tumor.
那后面那个就是最后一次再用那个结束加12分钟。
So the timing of the CT
因为我这个只有换角度而已，所以
Okay.
不用再加后面那个10分钟。
Okay.
对。
And in this case, in Japan, we usually use ultrasound. Contrast enhanced ultrasound is more precise vasculature of the tumor.
Dr. Liang?
Yes.
So the temperature also the same direction. Now it's down.
We confirm with the merchandise that the low temperature is the farthest needle tip. So the temperature is usually slightly lower than other direction.
And you deployed the electrode to the full length?
Not yet. Now it's 5 centimeter.
5. Okay.
Yes.
I think in this case also maybe if the patient can offer the proton therapy, this is also a good candidate. So how about IRE or proton in United States, Professor Liu? This is single tumor.
Did you say proton therapy?
Proton therapy. Proton therapy.
IRE. I think we're not ready yet to use IRE for something like this. Would take a long time. You don't mean proton beam therapy from radiation? That's just too expensive. I think only if you're a rich person you can afford it.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Joe from Taipei Veterinary General Hospital. Personally, I also got experience about the saline infusion pump, RF procedure. And I agree with Dr. Liang that the temperature here is not high enough, but that's in the tip. Because totally you can see 5 thermosensor, but this is the tip. That means the straight needle. And here will be the plasma needle and these other 3. There are totally 8 needles actually, but 6 surrounding and 2 in the center. So one of the center needle is related to pump, the saline pump, and the second needle is just for thermosensor. So actually, for this needle, it cannot be so high as compared with the other needles. And in this particular case, I think it's quite suitable for the saline pump procedure because the lesion seems to be well encapsulated. When there is a pseudo capsule, that means if you use pump, then the infused saline can distribute to the lesion homogeneously. Then the temperature can be quite homogeneously distributed in the lesion. So personally, I prefer, in this particular case, I prefer to use the saline infusion pump. So personally, I think it can be quite successful. But for this area, I'm not quite sure. For other part, for example, if the electrode touch or penetrating the hepatic vein especially, then we have to withdraw, just as mentioned by Professor Lee. We withdraw and we take a rotation for about 15 degrees. There are 6 needles. That means each needle gets 60 degrees.
Yeah.
So we rotate about 15 to 30 degrees. Then we can avoid the heat sink, and we can avoid the
penetrating the hepatic vein again. So usually we withdraw again and we do the second ablation. But in that particular example, we don't do 2, 3, 4, 5, stepwise procedure because we just want to do the last procedure, for example, 6 or 7 centimeter. Therefore, we can save some time. Yeah, this is what I usually do.
Thank you.
Actually, I do agree with Dr. Chu. This is looks like a very encapsulated tumor. So I was going to ask you, what would be your predictions as to the final ablation zone? Would it be exactly the size of the tumor, or do you feel it will go beyond the tumor? Because something like this that is very well encapsulated, my experience is that you will get the whole tumor.
Yeah.
And because luckily, right, there is no tumor beyond the capsule. But the ablation zone beyond the capsule may not be so even.
刚定做就知道了，
And so that's the
然后
question.
定做就会知道你 expand 的那
I
个 area 会
think,
不会 cover 得到
because，it's so capsulated, there's the so-called oven effect,
因为它是圆的，
and so it would work.
它是圆的，但是你看那个针烧起来会长，比较长，宽度会不太够，所以必须这样。
Yeah, I agree with David. You give us a very good comment. But in this case, because when we expand the needle up to 5 centimeter, at that time it's almost covered the whole tumor. But if you expand further, then the needle will reach about 6 centimeter. That means the needle penetrating the capsule. So in that areas, actually, the tumor just in the central part of the lesion covered by the capsule will be well abraded. But when the needle penetrating out, then there's a kind of spotty heating areas instead of homogeneous surrounding the whole lesion. So in that instance, you cannot get a so beautiful, well, round lesions, thermal lesions. So you're right. And one thing is that if you cannot get the you mean that after the procedure is the thermal lesion the same size or larger than the initial lesion? Right. The thermal lesion is usually larger than the initial lesion, but the outer zone is not quite smoothly demonstrated. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the timing limit? Yes. Okay. Dr. Liao,
Yes.
and you have studied the third ablation twice, second ablation now?
Yes. I complete previous ablation and I changed to another insertion to the lower part of the tumor.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but we don't have enough time to.
Yes.
So and let me show the U.S. monitor, and then we will finish
Okay.
your session.
Here is the local part, lower part of the tumor with homogeneous hyperechoic shadow.
Yes.
Now I expand the needle to 5 centimeters.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Liao, and we will finish your session. And thank you very much for your excellent technique and beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Okay.